Hi guys, good afternoon. Thank you for this giving me this opportunity to share with you what HaloCheck does. I don't want to bore you guys, but I just want to make it as interesting as possible because compliance is a very boring subject, but the stories behind that is very, very interesting. So I'd like to just take some of your time this afternoon to share with you a little bit about what HaloCheck can do and what Bank Negara wants out of this AMLA requirements. What AMLA means is Anti-Money Laundering Act, okay, otherwise known to many as money laundering, right? A little bit about, I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with this recent Bank Negara policy that was enforced in 2020. It happened in January 1st, 2020, that all real estate agents need to comply with anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist or financing requirements to conduct KYC. KYC means know your customer. And if you're not familiar with the policy, you can take a look at, you can actually look at the policy in the QR code. All you need to do is use your phone to click on it and you can download the Bank Negara policy. All right. Later on, I will want to share with you one of the stories that happened to a friend of mine, and it's a very interesting story. Now, this is what you're going to see when you download the policy. Now, the anti-money laundering policy is very extensive. It's about 180 pages, but if you look at where it applies to the real estate agents, it's in page 127 and 100 to 129. But essentially, this policy not only covers real estate agencies, but it covers a whole other host of industries, such as lawyers, accountants, company secretaries, trust companies. Now, Bank Negara has the fiduciary duty to actually manage and enforce money laundering. Now, they are the body that guards this portion to ensure that financial crimes are caught or managed. Okay, and from managing banks and insurance companies in the past, that was enforced in 2001, they've recently passed the law to actually enforce it to other non-banking industries. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with the Data and Compliance Report, but it's also known as the DCR 2020. It was given out to all the firms, including lawyers and accountants. So your real estate agencies would have received this, and I hope that many of you have completed them. But according to a Bank Negara source, that only 32% of real estate agents have actually answered this toolkit or this assessment. So I think it's important that real estate agents take this very seriously, because Bank Negara is very serious about money laundering. Now, if you are caught with any of these, I will share with you what the penalty is going to be. And it's happened to many of my my customers in the banking and insurance industry. Okay, you can download the DCR toolkit with the QR code as well. Now, a little bit about myself. I've been helping the banking and the insurance industry for the last 12 years in managing their compliance to Bank Negara's screening policies. And in the last 2 years, I've developed an web application to actually support the non-banking industries to comply with this particular policy. So if you actually Google about Verity Intelligence, you can see that a lot of our clients are in the banking industry, and we have the expertise to do a lot of screening. So if you look at this, I've shared with you 6 different industries that Bank Negara considers as gatekeepers. Real estate being the first one, because when it comes to trafficking or money laundering, a lot of these perpetrators will buy properties. And if you look clearly into one of them, the screening needs to be done through the buyer, the seller, landlord, and tenant. And they did not specify the amount or value of the property. So whether it's a $200 rental a month or a $10,000 rental a month, you still need to screen the person or the company. Okay. A little bit about that. They believe that these industries are your gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers are the first line of defense for money laundering. So they want to ensure that they not only guard the bank and insurance companies, but also guard the gatekeepers as well. Okay, and the penalty, it is a very serious penalty if you get caught for not screening your customers, not conducting KYC, or not conducting any due diligence with your customers. The fine can be between 1 to 3 million ringgit. Okay, the main thing that you need to understand in the whole entire policy, and you can download the guide over here, I've given you the slide, is item number 1 and number 2. If you look to your left of your screen, you need to comply by knowing your customers and capturing all this information about the person. And then you also have a duty to screen that person. And Bank Negara has stated what are the screening criteria. And item number 2 will share with you Ministry of Home Affairs, UN Security Council, and several other sites that you need to screen with. Okay, upon completing that, then you need to see whether there's a hit on or there isn't a hit on the match. Okay, and after that you follow up with number 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can find more information on the slides that the link that I've given you. Okay, essentially they want you to identify and verify your customer and understand the purpose of why the person is actually buying or selling the property or renting the property. If you are doing a co-agency, otherwise formerly known as co-broking, you have a duty to actually screen the buyer or the seller. So depending on where you are, then you will need to do the screening yourself. Okay, so if it's co-agency, then of course the real estate agent with the client then need to check whichever client. Now, several case studies. I would just want to share with you that I was having lunch with a friend of mine the other day, and she was just sharing with me one of the incidences that happened to her. She went through a 2-month ordeal in being investigated by the police, by MACC, and Bank Negara. One of her clients apparently were caught for money laundering, and the important thing to remember, or the lesson that she learned, was Bank Negara is very serious about it. And after going through this ordeal, she had to hire a lawyer to actually help her during this whole entire 2 months. And the case is not over yet because it takes a long process. And she's paid her lawyer more than 20,000 ringgit already during this investigation. And her firm might be facing a very big fine, or even her losing her license, because they were not complying to one of the requirements. So if you look at some of these are very, very high profile cases. If you receive a client who is politically linked, or a client who is on a sanctions list, you need to file an STR, a suspicious transaction report. Okay, and ask them and fill up the other kinds of documents that Bank Negara needs. If it's a very small job like a rental of a bungalow, you also need to fill up all the forms and run the screening as well. So don't fall prey just because that you know the client and you don't run a check. Bank Negara specifically says that every client that you have, you need to screen them before any transaction is done. Okay, and if you're not sure what a suspicious transaction is and what to do with it, you can actually click the link and download the document. I think all the information is in there. Okay, I think most of you will be getting my slides as well to understand what is a suspicious transaction. So regardless of the amount, the whole idea behind a suspicious transaction is if the transaction appears unusual or has no clear economic purpose, if it appears illegal, or if the person you feel that appears illegal, you need to file a report. Okay, if you feel that the client is involved in any unlawful activity, you also need to submit a suspicious transaction report. Now, this is very serious because This is what Bank Negara is looking for. If you don't file that, and if the person is caught for it, you will face a fine as well, and you'll get investigated and you'll be fined for it. Bank Negara is very serious about this. Some of the key things that we've shared over here in my slide. If the person resells the property very quickly, if payment is made and it's fully in cash. So these are just some of the areas that you need to file a suspicious transaction report. Essentially, I just want to share with you what HaloCheck does. Okay, HaloCheck.xyz, we are a web portal. You can go onto your Safari or your Chrome or your Google browser and download the app, the web e-commerce app. So basically, we have developed this HaloCheck to help you comply with Bank Negara's requirement. Remember number 1 and number 2? So we help you do KYC, and after that, we help you do the screening portion. If there's a hit, then you will need to fill in all the other forms. So basically, what a KYC is, let me go back. So basically, all you need to do is just download the app. It's on your Google or your Chrome, and then you have to fill up submit and register yourself. It just takes 2 minutes. You get an SMS, and also you get an email, and then if you got to check your spam or junk folder as well if you don't receive the email in 2 minutes. Once you've registered, you can do a eKYC of yourself if you want to do any eKYC. It's actually a very simple thing. Something to remember is actually the lighting, and there's no reflection. Then after that, you can run a risk check. A risk check is where you screen the client against all the information that we have here. Some of the stuff that we actually run a risk check on, and very quickly you can just download the person's name and number. You can just click in the person's name and you can run a check immediately. Okay, and the results will come in instantly. Okay, and these are some of the places that we run our database with. Essentially, everything the Bank Negara needs will be fulfilled over here once you've used the web portal, and you can print out a report. And this is how the report looks like. You can see the eKYC report on your left, and then the risk check screening report on the right. And it's a very simple process. If you want to know what you've downloaded in the last 30 days, so these are what you downloaded, and you need to keep this in your own personal folder. So that if you get any audits from Bank Negara, you can actually prove to them that you've done the check. So monthly packages, very, very cheap. We've got monthly packages of starting from 10 ringgit a month all the way up to 100 ringgit a month, depending on how many transactions that you do on a monthly basis. If you buy the annual package, you get something like a 10% discount if you buy the annual package. Okay, so if you want to understand when do you run a screening on a client, when the client actually buys a property or rents a property, you can actually conduct the KYC almost immediately. No consent is needed except for eKYC if you're sending them a requirement to verify the person. But if you're running a risk check or screening, number 2, then you just type in the name. Okay, once you get the report, you can submit the report. And if there's a finding, then you will then submit for a suspicious transaction report. Now, if you're working within a big organization, then usually HQ or branch managers will hold credits for it, and the rents will actually work with the branch managers to actually get the checks. Some customer testimonials. We've got some customer in the real estate agency. We're very fortunate that they are the early adopters, and they've been very happy customers. Feel free to ask them what their experiences are. Questions and answers? So I've given, these are just some of the screenshots that you're going to see, and if you want to download any of these, I highly recommend that you download these so that you can actually use them. Each check, okay, how much is each KYC? If you're running the facial recognition check, it costs 2 credits, which each credit costs 2 ringgit. So if you're running a KYC and a risk check, it costs 6 ringgit in total. Each credit is 2 ringgit. So you can buy a 50 ringgit a month or 10 ringgit a month depending on how many transactions that you have. How can we help you personally? From our system, I'm going to share with you over here our WhatsApp contact. You can reach out to us or you can email us for any questions that you need on how to comply with Bank Negara's policy with regards to screening. Feel free to reach out to us. We're also giving out 1-for-1 free checks, 1-for-1 checks, special deals for MIEA members only, if you're signing up for any one of these. Yes, you can type in the name of the company and you can run the check here. If the company is blacklisted, you actually find out. And then on top of that, once you get, if you do buy the SSM record of these companies, you actually need to run the checks on the directors and shareholders of the company to make sure that they comply with Bank Negara's requirement. When I file a report on suspicious activity, am I obligated to inform the person? No, you're not obligated to report to the person. You can actually, file it without informing the person. It's the same. For foreigner checks or local checks, the charges are the same. Just 1 credit, which is 2 ringgit. So what you can do is click the QR code right here, register yourself, because it's one of the requirements to register yourself, right? And then use the system. Soping has answered, confidential basis. Thank you. If you have further, if you do have some questions for your customer, if you want to try and discover more the reason, one of the requirements is also to ask the client, in your own way, how, why are they buying the property for, or why are they renting the property for. If you find that it's a little suspicious, such as the bungalow that's going for rent, you can actually file a report on that, just to protect yourself. Basically, what HaloCheck is to protect your agency when there's any problem. So it protects you as long as you run the checks. You can prove to Bank Negara that these are the reports that we have, that we've done our due diligence. And if they audit you, then you know that you've done your due diligence already. But if there's a hit on the person, then you need to identify and see whether this hit makes sense or not, or the match makes sense or not. No, HaloCheck doesn't require a consent to check the person. The data that we have are legally and publicly available information that we've collated from all over the place, and we put it into one system. It contains a lot of ungoogleable data as well. So, but still you don't need to check because we already have done all the purchasing of all the data for you on your behalf. Can I show you how it looks like? Hang on, a quick one. There you go. This is how the report looks like, essentially. So if you can see, if you're doing a KYC, a facial recognition, it will show the IC of the person that you've taken the picture of, and also the face that you've taken a picture of, to verify that this person is who he says he is. The KYC report has an AI in there, artificial intelligence, where it recognizes that the IC is actually a valid IC. So we've got 100 over landmarks within our IC that the system can recognize. It can recognize ICs all the way back to 20 years ago. And of course, the earlier ones we don't have lah. But from 20 years ago, most people will have the ICs, and the system is able to recognize. We will match the person's face against the picture in the IC. So if it matches that, if you put on weight or lost weight, wear glasses or not, it can also match it because it's got all the data points that it catches now. Do you mean we have to take a picture of the buyer instead of okay, so the facial recognition portion currently is optional. Right now, a lot of you are just taking a photocopy of the person's IC. Now, if you get audited by Bank Negara, some of the enforcement officers require you to verify. That means they will ask you, have you verified if this IC is real or not? And it's very hard to verify if you do that, if you take a photocopy. If you use our system, you can actually verify it because our system meets the Bank Negara requirements for what they call false acceptance rate. So we have the system that we can actually help you verify it. If you don't use this and you want to continue with your photocopies, Bank Negara will question you if this meets their requirement or not. Okay? So you need consent of the person if you were to take a picture of the person because he or she, your client, need to take a picture of themselves, right? But if you want to do just the wrist check, you can also use wrist check and you don't need consent for that. Okay? So wrist check, no consent. KYC, the person needs to do it themselves. Thomas Lim, do we have to print out and keep the report ourselves? You don't need to print out our document. You can email it to yourself, or you can keep it in your computer folder, and you can just keep it for minimum 6 years. Chelvam also said, hi Mark, thanks for sharing. How will we find out the client is suspicious? If you feel that the customer is suspicious, you can file the STR. Scan a copy of the NRIC, it's totally up to you. Bank Negara will still question you whether if you have verified this identity or not. So with the banks that we've been working with, so in the beginning, because the designated non-banking is still not so critical yet, they won't be so sticky, but eventually they'll move to become more strict with getting the IC completed. But knowing where technology is going, there's a high chance of them making it compulsory. You can use a fingerprint scan. They never said that you can't. You can use a fingerprint scan if you have it. An STR is a suspicious transaction report. Yes, this one, if you download it, you can use it on your mobile. You just have to save it on your home screen. This one is a web application. Is there an official accreditation standard that you as a checker have to adhere to? Well, there are false acceptance rate that we need to adhere to. Bank Negara requires minimum of 5% false acceptance rate. And then on the standard of checks that we have, there's a minimum requirement. But there's no accreditation given because Bank Negara doesn't endorse anybody. Can my system do enhanced due diligence checks? No, my system cannot do enhanced due diligence. You can do your own enhanced due diligence because that requires more extensive checks. So ours will cover about 90 to 95% of all your clients out there, maybe even more. There are very, very small cases, maybe about 3 to 5%, where you need enhanced due diligence. But totally depends who your clientele are. Risk check, yes, is compulsory. I'm going to answer one more question because I've got 2 more minutes. We are launching our passport scan in the next couple of months. So in the next couple of months, you can also screen your foreign or expat customers. Essentially, you can still run the risk check, take a photocopy of the person's passport at the meantime. Yes, our app can raise red flags. That means if there's a finding on the person, then you raise a STR after that. Okay, that's all for now. Thomas, Eric, Robert, if you got any question, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to show you what my our contact information is, and we can actually answer your questions. Sorry, can I go back to, okay, here you go. You can take a screenshot. You can pay monthly. It's not a per check basis. Monthly, then you get how many credits, and then you can just run the checks from there. So 5%, yes, every now and then. So Bank Negara allows for that 5%. But there's no real remedy for that. Thank you.